What's going on, guys? Look at this thing. It's making me small again. There we go. How are you? It's Wednesday night. Squadron is live, and I missed you guys last week. I'm very sorry I had to bug out, but the internet, when there is zero upload speed, it's kind of hard to do a live stream. And I will go ahead and forewarn you, it's not much better tonight. It is some better. It is working, but I have a new fiber internet service on the way, but it's still a week or two out. So we are putting up with and dealing with what we've got for now. So hopefully we'll make it through the show with no problems, but just going ahead and throwing that out there right now, just in case. We've got a lot of stuff to cover tonight. We've got a special guest with us tonight, Chris Henry. So very excited about that. Excited to have him with us to talk about all sorts of fun stuff. And we'll get into that here in just a few minutes. We we end up talking about this a lot. I love my little intro music there from the Red Alert video game series. And their new Tesla Trooper has finally arrived. This, of course, is from Border Models, and it's a pretty cool little kit. It's a pre-painted kit. Basically snapped together. It's a very easy build. It's a lot of fun, though. My brother Jared has just finished putting one of these together, and he has it ready for us to show off next week on the show and tell. And if I can twist his arm enough, he's going to join me next week for the show and tell. So you guys will get to meet my brother. So that will be fun. Lots of other great kits that we have been waiting on. You hear me talk about all the time. Logistics problems, and man, it just doesn't seem to get any easier. Thankfully, maybe today we got onto something that's going to help us going forward. We'll see, but we've been waiting so long for some of these kits, and this is the one that a lot of you have really been waiting on. They finally came in last week. I wanted to show them off last Wednesday, but we know how that went. These HO 229s Hortons from Tacom. They've got an A and a B. There they are. These are very cool kits. They're 132 scale. You can get both of these if you want both of them in their big box. If you know Tacom, you know Tacom, they have their big boxes. This is what the big box looks like. It also includes their 1/16th scale pilot for these things. Yes, I know the kits are 32 scale. The pilot's 1/16th. It's meant to be a standalone piece to display next to it. Anyway, that kit is included in the big box, but one thing that you need to know about Tacom, if you don't already know, this is the pilot figure, and this is what he looks like in his box if you buy him by itself, buy it separate from the big box. If you buy this in the big box, you don't get this. You only get this, and this is inserted inside of one of those two kits. I'm not sure which one. I think it's the A, but I could be wrong. So just one of those things to note. If you have ordered a big box and you open it up and you don't see this, don't panic. The sprue is inside one of the kits. You just unfortunately don't get the box. But you do save a few bucks buying the big box, so it makes it worth it. A couple more things I just want to mention. I know I'm flying through this a little quick, but like I said, I really want to get in there with Chris and see what he's got going on. You know, Dragon has been reissuing a lot of old kits that they've had off the market for a long time, and two of them that I personally think are very cool have just been re-released, and we just got them. This is their 35th scale support craft, the SEAL support craft boat. Very cool little kit. You don't, I'm a ship model guy, and you don't often get a ship model in such a large scale as 35th. There are a few of them. So anytime we see a 35th scale ship or boat subject, it's always interesting to me. And speaking of ship models, a more traditional scale of 1/350th, the USS Ohio submarine has finally been reissued by Dragon. My box is a little dented up here. Whenever we get box damage, if it's a kit that I was planning on buying one for myself anyway, I always take the damaged box so you guys can have the good boxes. But this is a cool kit. Very excited that this is back. You know, they also issued this in a couple other boxes. I know the Florida was one of them. I don't know what they're going to do. But perhaps we'll see some of those other boxings of those as well. Great Wall Hobby, as many of you know, and if you don't, you know now that we carry Great Wall Hobby, and some of these kits that we've been again waiting on finally showed up with this big shipment. Their new Black Snake version of the A10 is finally here, and this is a very cool box. I was not expecting this shiny, chromy box, but kind of cool. And as you know, Great Wall makes some fantastic kits, so make sure to check that out. That is all except for the big one that I want to show you here that you've probably already seen. But new paints. I see a lot of paint questions over here in the chat, and I'm going to get to my greetings. I'm not going to leave you guys out. We're going to get to that in just a moment. But we've got 6 new paint colors this week. We are trying our best to keep up the tradition of some new color releases each Wednesday night. That is probably going to stop in the next week or two because we will finally be through our initial colors that we're doing, and the other half of them will be coming here in several weeks. But tonight, and they're not on the website yet, they will be tomorrow, we've got REL 1003, which is Signal Yellow. We've got Flanker Radome Green, which was one of the flanker colors we were missing to begin with, and there's still one missing that'll be coming in the next batch, the next round. Insignia Red, USN. Let's see, Japanese, IJN and IJA, their Trainer Orange color. What is this? Regia Marina, their Hull Green for your ships. And finally, Kriegsmarine, REL 9003, the Carmine Red that you need for your German ships. So those are nice and ready. And then finally, this fun guy, the 200 scale Fletcher kit from Trumpeter. These have finally been released. We don't have them yet. Pre-orders are not shipping out yet. This is my sample that I got. It's a full kit. I've got a video that will be going on our YouTube channel sometime next week. And it will be one of my What's in the Box videos. I haven't done one of those in a little while. In fact, the Trumpeter Gerald R. Ford was the last one I did. But you'll be able to see what's in this box. And we are going to take an even closer look at some of these sprues in another video after that. We got a lot of fun stuff planned for this kit. So very exciting. The parts look great. So we'll go through it in more detail later. As far as when we will have them and when we will be able to ship out the pre-orders, we're looking around the middle of April, middle to end of April for those. So get excited for that. If you noticed on our website, the pre-orders have been cut off for those and lots of other items. There's many reasons for that, but soon we will have those open back up as soon as we verify a few things, and just be looking for that. You can go on the website and put your email in the notify me when back in stock, and back in stock can also mean pre-order available again. So just stick your email in there if you're interested in that and you did not get one on pre-order before we turn that off, and we'll let you know when we have that open back up. So I want to jump over here and say hello to everybody, but before I bring Chris on, I also have a small video that I put together from the IPMS AtlantaCon that we went to a couple of weekends ago, and I just want to show you what the show was all about. But instead of taking up time and only showing that, I'm going to play that in the background for you to view while I say hello to everybody. So we'll kill 2 birds with 1 stone here. And by the way, if you live in the area, in the Chattanooga area, Ringgold, Chattanooga, anywhere around here, and you are interested in being a part of a model club, the Chattanooga Scale Modelers is a model club that meets here at Squadron on I believe the 3rd Monday night of each month. And this was us last week. So we've got a room set up in the back, and we have a good time. We talk about club stuff. We do a show once a year, so we talk about that a little bit, and then we do what's called the show and tell. And you bring a model in, and you get to brag about your model and tell everybody what you're doing. So it's a lot of fun. If you are a part of a model club in another area, you know what I'm talking about. But if you're not a part of a model club and you're in this area, shoot me an email. I can send you the information. And If you're looking for a model club and you're not in this area, shoot me an email anyway. I can get you in touch with your local model club. Hopefully there is one local to you, but they're not everywhere. But perhaps there is one near you and I can hook you up with them. So let's check out this. And again, this is AtlantaCon, I think 2 weeks ago, if I remember correctly. So just check that out while I say hello to everybody. Joseph is here. Good to see you tonight, man. And Ken, greetings from Philly. Good to see you. Lee is with us tonight. And Derek. And David Miller's here. Good to see you, man. Danny's with us tonight, working on that 144 scale Dora. All right, that's awesome. I look forward to seeing it. Maybe you'll get done with it before I get done with my big one. Jason, good to see you tonight, buddy. Your kits at the show last week looked pretty fantastic. It was nice to see them. Always good to see you as well. Treston, good to see you. Skip. Oh, Skip. Hey, man. Good to see you, man. Carlos is with us tonight. And Ken Buffington's with us. Mark from Chicago. Good to see you tonight, man. Let's see. Who else we got tonight? Hey, Jeff's with us. Good to see you tonight, Jeff. Probably be seeing you on the screen here in a few minutes, so get ready. Jay Banks Haley's here. Good to see you tonight, buddy. Rex is with us tonight. Good evening, Ed, out in Texas. Wayne, how are you, man? Jay Banks, IPMS Club over in Anniston, Alabama. That's right, April 5th, they're having a show. So if you've got the opportunity, make sure to go check that out. Let's see. Wes is in here. Frank, good to see you, man. Always like seeing you from the other side of the world. You're our evening, your morning, so I hope you have a great day. Arnell, good to see you tonight. Michael, how are you, buddy? Rob's in here tonight. Michael and Evie Cronin, good to see you, buddy. TD, hey, man. Tom, coming to us from the villages of the White Sands, as always. It's good to see you tonight, man. Kimberly's with us. Good to see you. And Scott, it was good to see you at the show too, buddy. It was a good one. Always look forward to that show each year. I'm glad you picked up some paints. Hope you like them. Monty, good to see you tonight, buddy. The printed catalog, it is unfortunately taking significantly longer than I had intended for it to. We are still working on it, and I'm not throwing out any dates anymore, but working on getting it finished up as fast as possible. And as soon as we can get them out in the mail, we're going to do it. So hopefully soon. Hey, Tom, good to see you tonight, buddy. We will certainly have all sorts of paints at Nationals for sure. That's the plan anyway. And Ed, your question about the modern deck gray, we just got more bottled up. I should have them on the website in the next couple of days. Mike, up in Wisconsin, coming to us over on Facebook. Hey, Lee, good to see you tonight. Yeah, Ed, we're hoping to do some bigger bottles at some point. Hey, Mark, good to see you at this Marietta show as well. Yeah, AtlantaCon, by the way, guys, was technically in Marietta, which is just north of Atlanta, if you do not know that. Rich Dan, good to see you tonight, buddy. Keith, we're having a good day down here. Hope you are. Hey, Ricky, good to see you tonight, buddy. Looking forward to seeing that P-51 when you get done with it. Bill's going through his old Squadron catalogs. You know, I just took all of our collection of Squadron catalogs up to the store because I'm planning on displaying them in our storefront there. And I took all the boxes up there. Good grief, there's a ton of them. I don't know how in the world I'll ever get them all organized, but we're working on it. They made a whole bunch of them for sure. Hey, Matt. Yeah, the Qatari Hurricane announcement. That's going to be a pretty great model. I'm looking forward to seeing how that progresses, and hopefully they get it put out sooner than later. So we'll certainly be getting those. There's my brother. Yeah, he was this Tesla trooper from Border Models. You got to put batteries in it because his Tesla parts in his arm, they light up. Batteries are not included in the kit. So Jeremiah was a bullfrog. Good to see you tonight, buddy. Jim, you got the chat figured out. Awesome. It's good to see you tonight, my friend. And Ken got his Ohio sub yesterday. Awesome. Yeah, y'all look at this on the screen there, that Gundam kit, or I guess that's a Gundam. That thing was huge. There was a lot of Gundam kits in this show. I guess you saw them a second ago. I wasn't watching, but that last table was slap full of them. Just interesting to see. Keith, the Gerald R. Ford will be back in stock hopefully by the end of April. And that is another one of those that we will hopefully have back up for pre-order very soon, along with the Fletcher. Scott, our Squadron hats are not back in stock yet, but with any luck, we will have that and a few other things along those same lines ready for Nationals this year. We're working on that, and it's another one of those things that's been a long time coming. JB Top or James B. Oh, I see it in the comment now. James B says hello. How are you, James? And there's Jose up at Custom Dioramics. Good to see you tonight, buddy. And here's the other Jose Rodriguez down in Venezuela. Good to see you, buddy. And yes, please send more pictures for the next show and tell. That last round of pictures you sent to us were pretty fantastic. I really enjoyed that. Rex, this will be a question for Jeff when I get him on here. And let's see. In fact, poof, there's Jeff. How are you, Jeff?
Here I am.
I told you to be ready.
I'm over here answering messages.
There you go. Are you going to any other shows in your area? Rex wants to know.
Yep. Yeah. I messaged in the chat. Next weekend. I will be at IPMS Roscoe Turner.
There you go.
Indianapolis. Then I'll be at Wonderfest with you.
All right.
In Louisville.
Oh yeah, that's right around the corner.
Yeah, coming up on us, sneaking up on us. And then I will be at IPMS NIMCon, which they're in a new location, but they're Northern Illinois. They used to be in the Crystal Lakes area, but I think they're at a new venue, which slips my mind at the moment. But I will be at NIMCon as well, and then IPMS Nationals in Hampton Roads.
There you go. Well, good deal. John, I see you there, buddy. Good to see you tonight.
Yeah, the work that I am seeing on this video is just absolutely amazing.
Oh yeah, it's a good show. And Jose, yeah, we did good. I hope you did as well. Do this show here, Jeff, it's in Marietta, but there's a couple clubs that going together to put it on, so it's always a good time.
What was did you get a model count? What was
I didn't, man. You know how it is when we get there, we're nonstop from the minute it starts to the minute it ends. So if my brother hadn't been with me, I wouldn't even have had a chance to get this video made. So so I don't know how many models there were, but it was pretty good. I think they had a good turnout. I hope that they had a good turnout. I don't know how it compares to previous years or anything like that, but hopefully it was good. Let's see. Yeah, Dennis, those liners that were there, they look nice, but I didn't have much time to really spend looking at any models in depth, so I don't know scratch built or what. I just don't know. I did see them and they look pretty cool, but I just didn't get a chance to really look at them much.
490 models with 110 entries. Thanks, Jason.
Oh yeah, there we go.
That's a good size show.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, that's comparable to what we did up in Madison this past weekend.
Good deal. Well, that's what I got. I always have these plans of making a big, long, elaborate video, and honestly, that ended up being longer than I thought it was going to be. I didn't realize I spent that much time away from the booth, so hopefully Jared wasn't, yelling at me from across the room too bad. But it worked out, and glad to show it to you guys. So, well, you been doing all right?
There's a couple of adages, busier than a one-arm paper hanger, and
yeah, all sorts of stuff.
Things of that nature. But yeah, we are. The weather is finally starting to turn up here in the frozen tundra, and but I'm still down here in the shop, and I've got some absolutely spectacular stuff happening. That's going to have the Squadron logo on it.
Good deal.
We finished up I say it's me and the two dogs. That's still kind of my ethos. And the dogs are unionized, so they just sleep on the sofa over there. I actually do all the work, but I still have to list them.
There you go.
As being part of the team. But we finished up all of the color research for all the additional colors. So everything that we saw on the paint chart is been researched and confirmed and checked and double checked and is ready to go. I know we made some of the final adjustments today for getting those labels printed, and everything else is on track. And again, it's just a matter of, there are so many hours in the day.
Yep.
And there's just so many hours for us to do it.
Let me tell them this real quick. On the homepage of our website, over on the left, right below this catalog, this little button that says Scale Color or Squadron Scale Colors Color Chart. You want to click that. That will take you into our color chart where you will be able to see all of these colors he's referring to.
Now, the colors that are in white are colors that are active and in stock or coming online within the next couple of weeks. The colors that are in the cream colored background are colors that are slated for release this calendar year. Our goal is to have them ready to go in toto by IPMS Nationals. We'll see if that happens, but we are already starting to bring these colors online, and I'm confident that we'll get there.
Some of them will be ready at Nationals. It's just this question of is it going to be one or all?
Exactly.
Probably somewhere between the two.
But I can promise we will have one of those, at least one of those colors ready to go by Nationals.
I like what you said. This calendar year, that's pretty good. If we don't make that, then we got problems.
Well, everybody asks me for a specific date, and I always say July the 32nd. So
you can give them any date as long as you don't give a year, right?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, absolutely.
Oh, let me grab this other kit real quick that came in.
Uh-oh. I'm going to get surprised with something here. Which usually means more work.
I know a few guys had been asking when these were coming in. Red Sonja is finally here. The latest X Plus kit. So I forgot about that. I had it sitting over there. And before I know that we've got a guy that you're going to introduce in just a second, but you guys are not going to believe this. I've actually been working on it again.
Wow.
Yeah.
Look at that.
It's going. I started putting a little bit of paint on there. I'm trying to do the pre-shading thing so it kind of looks like it got beat with an ugly stick right now. But then again, most German vehicles look like they got beat with a ugly stick. So
you could just finish it. You could just leave it the way it is, put it on the wall, and say it's a cross section of a flying saucer or something.
Oh gosh. Well, Jeff, why don't you tell us who we've got backstage waiting to come on?
Well, I have known this gentleman for going on 20 years now. He is a very dear friend of mine. Hell of a nice guy, one of the nicest guys you'll ever meet. And he is as much of a geek as we are, in a good way, because he's kind of living the dream. He's a modeler. He runs one of the greatest air museums in the world. And he's a good friend. So if he's ready to go and standing by, do I have a thumbs up? There he is.
Hey,
ladies and gentlemen, Chris Henry, who is the museum manager and programs coordinator for the EAA Museum in Oshkosh, Wisconsin. So Chris is, God, we go back a long ways.
Yeah, we go back. I don't even know how many years, more than 15 at least.
Yeah. Too many to count at this point. And then as we get older, it's like forever.
Yeah, exactly. Thank you guys for having me tonight.
It's great to have you here. So as I kind of said in the opening, you're kind of like living the dream. I think every single person who has ever put a model kit together has fantasized about, playing with the real thing, flying the real thing. And you're doing that every day. Yeah. So tell us how gluing stuff together and sniffing tube glue got you to where you are today.
Well, it certainly explains a lot about myself. So, first off, it really means a lot to be on here. Squadron goes back to when I was 12. That's where I would get my models. I remember those monthly catalogs you were talking about taking care of, Brandon. In many regards, Squadron helped sort of feed that passion that I use every day in my job now. So when I was a kid growing up, I'm born and raised in Pittsburgh. I wanted to be a construction worker. My family is all Italian immigrants, and they were construction workers. And then my uncle took me, without my mom knowing, to see this movie called Top Gun when I was a kid. And man, that just completely... I was done playing with dump trucks. I wanted to go and talk about airplanes, and then I'll never forget. He brought me home the documentary on VHS of the Memphis Belle, and that was it. I was a B-17 nerd from that day forward. They were restoring one locally. They were restoring 909 after it had a landing mishap up in Beaver Falls, which is not far from where I was from. And I started volunteering when I was 12 at the Air Museum up there, just sandblasting parts and power washing stuff, whatever I can do. But I didn't care. I was around the B-17, and we had a bunch of other warbirds up there from the Talashe collection, and that was it. But the model building was just this gateway drug, and I was surrounded by model builders up at the museum. A lot of guys did it, really got me into it, and it's one of those things that a lot of my family just assumed that, I would kind of forget, I would get too involved with life or whatever. But really what it's been is it's just relief valve for me, to come home and just kind of get centered. My wife she does hobbies sort of down at the end of my workbench, and she'll do puzzles or something. Mm-hmm. And puzzles are her jam. And I'll work on my model, but we're still hanging out together. We're still chilling out together, but just doing our own hobby a little bit. So Long story short, I went to school, worked for the airlines when I was going to school, and went to school for air traffic control. Was a medical helicopter dispatcher in Pittsburgh for about 5 years, and I got hired to be an air traffic controller. Did that, and then came to EAA about almost 15 years ago. It's like 13 and some change or something, and just little by little, you start working up, finding out where you fit in the organization. I worked on the Air Tours program, the B-17, and then the 4-tri-motor and other things, and then came over to the museum team in 2016, and then about 2.5 years ago, I started leading the museum. So absolutely love it.
Yeah, and that's I know that was one of the things. I also came from the Air Museum background, and modeling actually got me my foot in the door at the museum, because I was doing model work as a volunteer for the museum, and then ended up being the director before I moved out here. And it's funny because you and I, we, on any given occasion, whenever we're together having dinner or something like that, we're either talking about real airplanes, we're talking about models, or we're talking about the logistics of running a museum, an air museum. And for those who didn't know, I was the director of the New Jersey Aviation Hall of Fame and Museum, located in Teterboro. And I was there from the mid 90s to the mid 2000s, about 12 years. And so we always seem to have, and then cars, you're a Dodge Challenger guy and I'm a Chevy Camaro guy. So we have that little banter bicker. But it always comes back to, either modeling or the love and the passion that we have, not only for the hobby, but the subject matter of the hobby. And then the opportunity to work on the real thing,
Yeah.
So let me ask you, because it happened to me, and I have, if you've never been to the EAA museum in Oshkosh, you have to go. It's one of those, I put it up there with, you have to go to the Smithsonian Air and Space, you have to go to the Air Force Museum, you have to go to Pensacola to the Naval Air Museum, you have to go to the EAA museum in Oshkosh. Do you, or have you gotten to the point where you walk into the office every morning and you just go, oh, there's another P-51. Oh, there's a P-38. Oh, there's a Corsair. I mean, has it had a negative effect on your hobby, or has it actually accentuated the hobby?
I think for me, and I can only speak to my sort of journey in it. What I would say is, because of my hobby, I am a better museum professional, and then vice versa. And I'll tell you how this has gone both ways. When it comes to things like aircraft restoration, which we're going to talk about here in a little bit, because of my passion for model building and getting the right colors and getting decals the right correct thing, and also for an airplane that, let's say, there isn't a big background for, this one didn't do a lot, so we could do a representative scheme. It's the same way I approach a model. If I'm going to build a P-40, I want it to tell a story. And same thing goes to us. If we're going to get an airplane and this one maybe doesn't have a huge story, which luckily most of ours do, but let's say we have a type that doesn't, it allows me to kind of sit back and say, what do we want people to know about this era and this airframe, and what can it do for us? And I approach that the same way as a model, or what would be goofy? Like, what would be something that would make someone question, like, why is that on there? Like, why is there a World War II marking, kill marking on a jet? And then we can tell the story, like, well, this guy served in both wars or something like that, so it's made me better. And as we're going to talk about here on going forward, the attention to detail, I will say it time and time again. I'll go on any record you want. I'll sort any Bible you want. I really wish warbird museums, restorers would consult model builders more. And I think it would really get us the most accurate finishes and paint jobs, because if you think about it, plastic model building, that's what it's all about, is that exterior finish a lot of times, how this model is going to display. Now, the other side of it is why I say it's made me a better model builder too. Not necessarily a builder, however, how I display my models, I tend to use the lessons I learned on displaying museum artifacts. When I come home, I'm like, oh, gee, that should be kind of like this or like that, and tell a different story. And then I'm like, in my head, I'm like, wait a minute, who's coming to my house? I'm just, yeah, exactly. So, I start thinking about like, well, if somebody's in a wheelchair, they can't see that. And I'm like, wait, there's nobody in my house. Like, why am I thinking that way? So, yeah, it's pretty funny.
It's kind of inspiring to see the crossover that, most of us always aspire to be going in the direction of the real aircraft, of the real warbirds, and either volunteering or working with them in some capacity. But a lot of folks don't realize that, those of us that were, and in your case are, in the warbird, in the aviation community, we gravitate back towards the model building.
Yeah.
Because it allows us to do things that we can't normally do with the real aircraft.
Absolutely. And what I would challenge a lot of model builders, wherever you are, one of the things, if you're on the fence and you'd love to get involved, in a real aircraft, there are tons of warbirds across the country on poles at like VFWs and things like that are on static display, like as a memorial. And a lot of times those airplanes desperately could use some care. And a lot of times the people that are caretakers of them would love to have the help. They just don't have the people. So if you're ever in your backyard, if there's a VFW that has an F-86 or a T-33 on a pole, ask if you can help clean it, or maybe give it a coat of paint or something like that. Work with them. But you'd be amazed that sometimes that just stopping in and asking, you might end up there scrubbing a fighter jet or something on a pole, and it's that gateway in of maybe you can help them clean it up or give it some paint or something like that. But
yeah.
Well, Chris, I know I've got some pictures here we're going to show in just a minute of some of your aircraft that are there at your museum. But one thing I want to ask you about that I just personally find interesting is, and we were talking before the show backstage, and you mentioned the nose art collection that is currently on display in Texas, used to be up at your museum.
That's right.
How is that? I mean, I would love to see it in person. Tell us a little bit about that and the background of how that stuff even still exists.
Well, it's a remarkable story. So the Commemorative Air Force has that collection. The reason we got it, we were the only museum to ever have it. It was always there at the CAF in Midland. It's only because they were building their new museum in Dallas. They said, rather than put these in storage, let's share them with another museum. And they trusted us with them.
Okay.
35 pieces of original nose art. Now, what happened was there was a gentleman who owned a scrapyard where these bombers were coming back to after the end of the war, and they were scrapping bombers. And he would drive through and pick out the ones that he liked, and his guys would go and they would just torch it right off the airplane and pull that nose art panel and then put it aside. Now, the story that's kind of funny is his wife would host some sort of a high-end party, and he didn't really like this high-end party that was happening. So his goal was he was going to make a fence with these nose art panels all facing back toward the house, mainly, naked ladies and stuff like that, so that she would stop having these parties. But he was picking the panels he liked. The fence never happened. He stored them in a barn. And then just years went by, and finally his son told his dad, do you know what you have here? These are priceless. And he donated them to the CAF. Now, I always tell people the backs of the panels are just as interesting as the front.
Okay.
And the reason is because they were cut right off the bomber. So when you go and look at the back of a B-24 panel that they have, all the pulleys and cables and things like that are still there. It's just right off the airplane. Why the art is exciting is because it's all original. It's not touched up. It's not redone. They did a cleaning process years ago to it. But it's the largest collection of all original nose art ever, and we were very lucky to have it. I'll tell you a fun story. We had a gentleman that came into our museum one day, and he brought his photo album with him, and he was kind of showing the front desk people that he was a B-24 bombardier, and they said, "What was your airplane named?" And he says, "Mine was Sloppy but Safe." And we all just kind of froze because we're like, that panel's out in the Eagle hangar right now. And he turns the page and there it is. I mean, it's the same artwork. So we're like, do you know what's out here? And the guy had no idea. He was about 45 minutes away and
Oh, wow.
just came to see the nose art panels. So we got to take him out to see this nose art panel. And the way the panel was cut, I mean, his window is still in it. He's just like, man, that's the window I used to look out of. And he flew 35 missions in that B-24. And the airplane was named that because the controls were very giving. They were just kind of loose. So they named the airplane Sloppy But Safe, which is what somebody wrote in the logbook for the airplane returning to service. So just incredible, though, to get. I love the people stories that these airplanes were able to put together. I mean, the paint and the rivets, those are always going to be, restoring the hardware is always amazing. But it's once you get it restored and you get it on display, what happens next is truly magical.
You've got some serious, and I've been fortunate to be, part of a lot of these stories. My story, and I don't remember which one of the brothers it was, but I was hanging out with you at the museum, and one of the Rutan brothers came walking up, and I think, was it Bert?
Yeah, I think it was Bert.
It was Bert Rutan, who's, he's a legend in aviation. Bert Rutan comes walking up and is hanging out with us, and just, and I'm, I'm in full geek mode, trying not to, act all fanboy and everything. But that's the beauty of that museum. And there are so many aircraft there that have stories like that.
Yeah.
So that was a perfect setup. So there used to be an F-86. Now you have an F-86 as a gate guard, right, when you come into the museum grounds. And that's done up in Wisconsin Air National Guard markings. But you had another F-86 that was sitting kind of in the back, and it was static. And I think you had there was a MiG-15 there for a while, and you had them side by side. And if I remember correctly, it was done up in Gabby Gabreski's F-86 markings from Korea. But that aircraft has recently been moved back into the Eagle hangar and has gotten a major facelift. Do you want to tell us about and the story behind that? I know the story. It's super cool.
Absolutely. There she is there. I'm really proud of it.
Wow.
So our F-86, it's a Canadair built F-86. It's exact, basically to F standards, Foxtrot standards. Our airplane for years, it didn't really have an identity. It kind of went back and forth. It was kind of plain Jane. It had the yellow bands on it, and then at one point it had a very small vinyl lettering that said Gabby, which is how his Sabre was painted, at least one of them. That was done for a reunion, and then it just kind of sat around. It was in the collection. We usually, we kept it indoors. It would move it out for air venture or whatever, but that was about it. And it really bothered me because I love the F-86. I think it is just what a fighter should look like. And we wanted to do something special with it. So we started researching, what should we paint it like? And we were trying to find one that hasn't been done, because I love Joe McConnell, but there's a lot of different Beauteous Butches out there and stuff. And I hosted an Apollo reunion. I got to host a bunch of Apollo astronauts one year. And with that group was also Gene Kranz. Hosted him a few times, the legendary flight director from Apollo 13 and as well as a lot of others. And so talking to Gene, he said, I flew F-86s in Korea. And we're like, okay, well, that could be interesting. And he said the airplane was named My Darling Marta, named after his wife. They're still married. And right then and there, I was like, I think we have our answer. This would be a really cool way to honor a great man who, nobody talks to Gene Kranz about his Sabre flying. Everybody wants to talk about, the Apollo stuff, which I get. So I asked him, I said, Gene, what did your airplane look like? And he had a couple pictures, and then he had, he had 2 pictures. That was about it. And there's one of them there. And this was about all we had to go off of. That, and he had a model that he commissioned to be built in Korea during the war. And this was at the tail end of the war. This is he was part of the peace keeping flights that were going on. And he was in the 69th Fighter Bomber Wing. So you know, we picked his brain, wouldn't tell him what we were doing. And I told him, I lied to him, and I said, "Oh, I'm working on a model. I'd like to build a model year airplane." And we
It's
did.
not a,
We did.
it's not
We
a
did.
lie. It's just 1-to-1 scale.
Yeah, exactly. We went a little bigger. I'm ready for the Edward 1-to-1 scale F-86, and but we tackled this. Me and my friend Aaron Dack, we sat there, and so when they did the Memphis Belle in Dayton, Jeff Duford is the gentleman who led that charge, and Jeff Duford's a good friend of mine.
Good guy.
Yep. Oh yeah, and I think Jeff set the standard for aircraft restoration. And what I mean by that is, if you go and look at the documentary of the Memphis Belle, and you track down, pick a marking, whatever marking you want to look at, and then you go look at the airplane, they've counted rivets and panel lines. I mean, that's how accurate they got. And to me, that's it. That's where it's at. You can't get any better than that. So I try to do what Jeff Duford does. I full on will admit I copy Jeff Duford. He's someone I look up to. Yeah. He's a friend of mine. And so that's what we do. When we do this, we tracked panel lines, and we tried to hit the panel lines. We would, point out something and would say, okay, which you hit this panel line at this angle or whatever. We matched the paint. We were very lucky. Gene had showed us his helmet, and the blue on his helmet was the same blue they used on the airplane. So we were able to color match the paint. So that's how it looks the way it does today. So we did the airplane, but it was cool because we unveiled to him, we surprised him. We just put it and the lettering on first for My Darling Marta. And then we revealed it to him that we were going to do the airplane, and Gene, got pretty emotional at that. But then as we were actually doing the markings, we'd be laying stuff out with tape, and we would just FaceTime Gene, which is pretty cool, and just say, "Gene, does this look right?" And he'd be like, look. And it's funny because you've got this mission control voice booming through the Zoom call, and he's like, "I think it goes a little lower," and we're just like, "Okay, Gene," and we're just hitting the marks wherever we agreed on. But we're really happy with how it came out. It honors a great man. Something that's interesting on this airplane is My Darling Marta painted on the left side. On the aircraft right side is Miss Judy, and a totally different name on the canopy rail, and that was his crew chief. The crew chiefs always named the right side of their airplanes, and the pilots named the left side. So we honored his crew chief as well, which the crew chiefs never got the glory that everybody else did. Yeah. So we're very happy with this because it's our airplane. This is not a loaned airplane, so we were able to actually duplicate like the tail numbers and everything. If it's a loan airplane, you have to put the airplane's real identity up there. But we were able to as closely as we could recreate My Darling Marta, which we're really proud of. And
that's
that airplane, cool. Yeah, you can see that airplane. Since we've done that, Gene donated all of his flight gear from Korea, and that's on display next to the airplane now, out in the Eagle hangar in our museum.
Wow, very cool.
Yeah, it's a cool thing to get to be part of.
That's those are the stories that as a museum guy you live for. I mean, that's the whole reason we do what we do. I mean, preserving the aircraft is one thing, but when you can bring all of that together, that's
it's cool stuff. His my favorite story he told me about it was when you're parked sitting alert, the biggest compliment you can give to your crew chief is if they alert you and you have to fire up and go, that you're the first one out of the pad. And he said, we got the alert. I climbed up the airplane, and my boot gets stuck in the kick-in step on the side of the airplane. And he said, and I couldn't get it out. And he goes, so I just unlaced my boot, got in the airplane, fired it up, and took off. And he flew a whole mission with his boot stuck in his kick-in step, and it never came out. He landed, and he goes, when I got out, I put my foot back in my boot, and I was able to somehow get it out of there. And he goes, I flew a mission with a boot stuck in my kick-in step on my Sabre.
That is wild. Now, of course, did he autograph the aircraft? Has he seen it?
Yeah. So he hasn't been here in person yet, but he did sign the airplane when we first told him about it. He was here in person when we had the lettering on it. He hasn't seen it in person all the way done, but we've brought him basically that photo you just saw. We did a series of photos for him. Nice. And we're hoping to get him out here probably right after the show.
Fantastic. Fantastic. Yeah. So you have so many aircraft in the collection that are, I mean, as you mentioned, some of them might not have a story behind them, but they're historic.
Yeah.
Your your Ford Trimotor. I mean, that thing is still lumbering along. It was built in 1929.
Yeah,
And you're
1929.
still, yeah. I mean, the history behind that is just.
And we have a Swallow that was built 1927 that you can buy a ride in through the summer months out here behind them, at our Pioneer Airport right behind the museum. And we think we're pretty sure it's the oldest airplane you can routinely buy a ticket and go fly in.
Wow.
But 1927, coming up on 100 years.
And of course, you have in your possession the oldest surviving P-51 Mustang.
Yes. Yeah, we have the XP-51. It's the fourth one ever built. And it's actually pulled out of that initial order of 75 that the British were going to get. They pulled the fourth and the 10th one and gave those to the United States Army Air Corps to test out, to sort of grease the wheels so that they could get this Lend-Lease through. And then that airplane spent most of its life at Wright Field, then over to Langley, and then in storage with Air and Space, and then over to us. So yeah, we're very fortunate to have that airplane.
And yeah, I mean, those of us who go to AirVenture, you see the lineup of the P-51s, and by the time you walk down, you're even taking them for granted. But when you see something like the XP-51 NA-73, you're wow, what a piece of history. It's very, very special. And you've got another one that is my personal favorite. The F4U-4 Corsair.
Yeah.
And you recently discovered something about this aircraft.
We did. Yeah. It's probably about the only good thing to come out of COVID. And what I mean by that is, so this airplane, when it was originally restored, we've had this airplane in our collection since the 80s. Warbird collector Connie Bolin had it, or Connie Edwards, I'm sorry, had it. And Connie Bolin is a Warbird's head, but Connie Edwards had the airplane, gave it to us in the 80s. There was some conversation we found in the paperwork about how they wanted to repaint it. John Hopkins, who's just a wonderful artist and restorer of these machines, still with us over at the Weeks Hangar. He said, let's do something different, because there was some conversation actually about painting it like Pappy Boynton's airplane back in the day. And he said, let's do something different. Besides, that's not the right model. So they did it up as originally as Kenneth Walsh's -4 as it appeared in Okinawa. So pretty cool. Kenneth Walsh was the first Corsair ace.
Medal of Honor recipient.
Absolutely, yeah. And a great guy. He was still alive. Yeah. So he got to see his airplane recreated, which that's awesome. I'm glad at that time that is what they did. The airplane then came into the museum and was on display, very similar to this, but with just different markings for years. And what happened was during COVID, every museum, and I know anybody that works in a museum or volunteers in museums is going to understand this, sometimes the artifacts grow stories, and well-meaning volunteers or even staff kind of, will start putting stuff out that's like, okay, like that's not Hitler's canoe, guys. We got to go figure this out here. So, so this airplane, it started to grow. We just didn't know. Well, during COVID, our museum director at the time, Ron, said, why don't we just start becoming the masters of these airplane stories? Like everybody just pick some airplanes. We were all working from home, and it was like, this is perfect time. Let's really dive into it. So the Corsair is one that myself and Ben, our museum curator at the time, him and I got into. Let's really dig into the Corsair. The story we had always heard was that it was this airplane was the first Corsair to race at Reno, unmodified or anything. But the military history was always a bit sketchy. And the story I had heard was it had flown off of, can't remember which ship they were saying it flew off of. So we were going all out looking at this aircraft carrier, trying to find our aircraft, our tail number, and we couldn't find anything. Well, in the drawer for the airplane in the filing cabinet, the logbook had slid like underneath it, underneath the paperwork. So when we were going through it, we're like, oh my gosh, here's the logbook. And we got the airplane. We're like, I wonder how far, or the logbook. And we said, I wonder how far back it goes. Well, we open it up and here it goes all the way back to the acceptance flight at Stratford, Connecticut, from Chance Vought to the Navy. So we're like, holy cow, this is this aircraft's whole history. So we start flipping through the logbook, and we knew that it was built too late for World War II. We had kind of knew that. And it was built right at the tail end of the war, went into storage, came out of storage, went to a Fazron 2, which was a replacement depot, basically for aircraft carriers that were losing aircraft. They would come here for fleet, or something from the fleet was lost. They'd come and this would be a replenishment depot. And I turned the page in the logbook, and from when it says it went to this replacement depot, and it just said like February 1951, transferred from Fazron 2 to VF-32, and was picked up by Marty Good. And you're just sitting there because you're like, Marty Good, like he's in the book Devotion, like he's in the movie wasn't out yet, but I just read the book not that long before this. And I'm like, oh my God, this went to VF-32. And then it goes on to the USS Leyte, and did a cruise on the Leyte. And then as we're looking, we're like, this airplane was flown by Tom Hudner, Savoli, Wilkinson, Dad Fowler, all these guys that are larger than life in the movie Devotion or in the book. And we were able to find out what nose number it had. It was 209. So then we went to the Navy cruise books, the USS Leyte on that cruise. We pull the pictures, and there's 209 sitting on the deck of the USS Leyte. So this is our airplane. So when John Hopkins restored this airplane originally, he was very proud of it. You have to remember, this was in the late 80s when he did this airplane. Warbird paint schemes weren't always necessarily the most accurate at that point.
Right.
And John was very proud of putting out a very accurate restoration. So this is his baby. And I had to go to John and say, I want to strip all the paint off your baby and repaint it in its real scheme.
Right.
But the reason we want to do this is because if we do this and we do it right, we can be proud of this. We can tell a story about Korea in our museum. We could talk about Jesse Brown and Tom Hudner. And our Corsair will be one of only about 5 that is actually representing itself. It's painted in its own markings. So we went with the Navy. We went to the Navy. The Naval Aviation Museum provided us like NATOPS manuals, and we have photos, and we hit panel lines right where they should be, down to the fact that 209 was a replacement airplane. They didn't use the same stencil that they did on like Jesse Brown and Tom Hudner's airplanes, that the ones that were lost on December 4th, 1950. Our 209 is bigger than the other squadron's markings because it was just a different stencil. So as a matter of fact, our 209, like on that side of the airplane, the 9 actually goes out onto the cowl flaps. And it drove you nuts to paint it onto the cowl flaps, but we have a photo and it's like, yep, there it is. It goes right out onto the cowl flaps. So we're very proud of how it turned out. When we cut the ribbon for this airplane, we didn't cut the ribbon. The family members of Jesse Brown and Tom Hudner cut the ribbon.
Wow.
Let me tell you, at the risk of going too long, and I hope I'm not, I'll tell you one little sort of Easter egg on the airplane. On the left side of the airplane, we have Tom Hudner's name. We're not 100% sure that was ever on there. The squadron did put their names on some of the airplanes. We thought it was a fitting tribute, so we did put it on there. We're guessing as far as that, but like I said, we have airplanes in the squadron that did have them on there. Mm-hmm. On the right side of the aircraft, we put Jesse Brown's name on the airplane as a tribute to Jesse. Now we know that name was never on that airplane. That's
Doesn't
something
matter. It was there.
And I was a little sensitive about doing it, and I said, well, it is a cool tribute, and it's facing that part of the airplane, that right side is facing the part of the exhibit that talks about Jesse. So I'm like, okay, well, that does feel good. Now, This all got put at ease when we hosted VFA 32, and they brought in a Super Hornet, current day squadron that flew the same VFA 32. This was VF 32. And when we go around the airplane, I'm giving a tour to their pilots, and we get to the right side, and they're like, oh, that's cool. You put Jesse's name on the right side of the airplane. And I told them the story that I just told you. And they said, no. Every commanding officer of VFA 32 always wears Jesse's name on the right side of their Hornet. And the Hornet that they brought to Oshkosh that year had Jesse's name on the right side of the airplane.
Okay.
So now I'm like, oh, yeah, I'm really glad we did it, because it's carrying on that sort of squadron tradition that they still do today.
Wow.
That's
goosebump stuff right there.
Yeah, and the exhibit that's around it is one that Ben Page designed. He did a great job. But now we had a carrier there before, and it really just kind of focused on the science of carrier flying and what it was like to be on a carrier. And now we're telling a story of doing the right thing, even though it's hard. And that's including Jesse and Tom. That's including EA leadership for allowing us to change the markings on the airplane. That's everybody here. And then we're talking about close air support. We're teaching about Korea, which doesn't really get taught a lot about. So it's a pretty powerful exhibit.
Yeah, that's amazing. That's amazing.
Well,
and that's that part of the, and you mentioned it earlier that Korea is kind of the forgotten war.
Yeah.
And those guys don't get they don't get the credit that they deserve for what they did. And that then segues into Vietnam, which is, almost the ignored war, probably except, for the last 10 or 15 years or so. And you just added a new exhibit to the museum, which I was fortunate enough to be there very early on in the process and even contributed to it.
You do. You have an item on display out there. Yeah.
Yeah. So tell us about the Huey.
Exactly. So we got a Huey. I had been pushing for a long time to get one. I felt that it was the perfect aircraft to honor Vietnam. And there's a reason. First off, they finally said, like, you know what, Chris, we're going to go after a Vietnam aircraft, some Vietnam story. What do you want to do? And I'm like, oh man, we need a Skyraider and a B-52 and an F-105 and an F-4. And they're like, no, you can have one. And I was like, oh, okay. And I said, well, then I think it's a Huey. And I said, because, if you were in an F4 unit, the F4 is your jam. That's your thing. But the thing is the Huey touched everybody's lives in Vietnam. Even the people on the home front who were watching the nightly news saw the Hueys. That is just such a legend of an airframe. It's an iconic airframe of that conflict. It fits wonderfully in the museum. So we started going after which one we were going to go after. And, I'm a big fan of course, like I want one with history, but that's getting harder to get. So the military actually said, we have a long cab one that was over in Germany. It never was in Vietnam. However, we can fly it in. It's in really nice shape, and you can have it, and then you can paint it up however you want. And that, that sounded okay. I really wanted something that was there, but it's like, well, we could really honor a pretty cool crew or something. And we called Dave Barron, and Dave Barron, who actually rescues these things out of the boneyard, he said, well, it's funny you're calling. I just rescued this Bravo model, so it's early, out of the boneyard. It was a gunship, flew 3 tours in Vietnam. It's not pretty right now, but it's got all the wartime bullet hole patches still in it and everything. And the interior is in original condition. All the scratches in the floor and everything, that's all real. He goes, it's yours if you want it. And we said, yeah, absolutely. So he did what I would call a preservation. He was basically the least amount invasive that he had to be to make us have a nice display aircraft. To give you an idea, over in Vietnam, there was a lot of that orange sort of clay that they had to go through. That dirt stained the floor, and that is still stained in the interior of our aircraft. So the airplane never flew. It came home from Vietnam. It was a B model. It was underpowered, so nobody really wanted to mess with it. It went straight to the boneyard, and then from the boneyard to restoration to us. So the last time it flew, it was in Vietnam. Wow. So the aircraft was named the Good Widow, Mrs. Jones, over in Vietnam, had a Playboy pinup painted on the nose. And then the squadron commander said, I don't really love that. So then they put the Viking on the nose. This aircraft was based out of Soc Trang with the Soc Trang Tigers. The gunship platoon of the Soc Trang Tigers were the Vikings. So it has a Viking on the nose. And as we were putting the aircraft back together, one of my favorite stories is we found Mike Cusick, the original crew chief for the aircraft. And he, imagine the crew chief from like Black Sheep Squadron, you know, the big cigar, and like, I'll tell you this, college boy, like that guy. And he is like, now look, he goes, I'm going to go down and I'm going to see the aircraft, but don't think I'm going to get all sentimental and dirty on it or anything like that. I just want to see it. And they were like, yeah, absolutely. Come on down. Let's see it. He went down there at 10 a.m. and then for the next 3 months continued to work on the aircraft with us down there, and just got filthy dirty. He's got the cigar, he's just the crew chief. He's going to be the crew chief forever. We had the airplane trucked up, or aircraft trucked up, and then put in the exhibit. We built the exhibit around it. We did not want to just put a Huey in the museum, rope it off, and say done. Right. So this exhibit tells you about why the helicopters were important, a little bit about Vietnam, and then a lot about Soc Trang and what this aircraft did. Yeah. This picture you're looking at was the reunion we had 2 years ago of the 121st Assault Helicopter Company with the aircraft when they came up here. And there's two things that happen. One is one of the most touching moments for me was they said, Chris, this is the homecoming we didn't get from Vietnam when we came home. They said when we came home, a lot of us hid the fact that we were in Vietnam because we couldn't get hired to do jobs, that nobody wanted to hire us. Right. So now we get to have this, and they're very proud of it. The other thing, there's yet two more. Brian Siplin, our original pilot, he gave us a bunch of artifacts for the exhibit. His helmet is hanging on the helmet hook inside the airplane. We really went the extra mile again, and this is a model building kind of thing. It's that detail work. Brian Siplin smoked cool cigarettes because he can get them cheaper than everything else. And he had a Zippo, and he had kept both of these in the ashtray because Hueys were built with ashtrays. And we found a 1968 issue pack of cool cigarettes, and we actually had Zippo recreate the 121st Zippos that they had with the logo painted on it. And those are sitting in the ashtray of the aircraft, and then his helmet is hanging on the helmet hook above his head. Brian Siplin passed away during COVID, and he never got to see the aircraft done, but he saw it, that we were in process of doing it. He passed very suddenly. And where he was, due to like COVID regulations, his family couldn't have the full ceremony. We were in a situation where we could at least have a little bit of it. So we actually had a color guard come out. They did the 21 gun salute, played taps, folded the flag, and they laid the flag rather than present it to his wife. They laid it on the pilot seat of the aircraft. We filmed the whole thing and then mailed all of it to his family. And his son said that this meant so much to us that we aren't going to have a service. This is my dad's service, what you guys just did. So that really, the aircraft was with us for a short period of time at this point, and it's already had a very big impact. I'll tell you personally, at this reunion, this was in 23, they surprised me that you can see some of them wearing like a black beret, like the gentleman sitting in the front row. Mm-hmm. The Vikings wore black berets. That was a very special thing that they did. And at the reunion, they called me up and they made me an honorary Viking. Wow. I'm only the first person since Vietnam to get that. So that was that's a deep meaning. These guys are brothers to me now, and I go to the reunions that they said, we want you at the reunions. I go to the reunions. So last year I was in the New Mexico with them, and it just, and they've shared their personal photo albums with us. The aircraft front cabin doors are the interiors are black on this one. We took silver Sharpies and we've had all of them sign the interior of the doors. And think about now if you went somewhere and there was a door that was signed by Civil War veterans, you'd be like, holy cow, that's what we're gonna have in our Huey, down the road. So
for eternity,
yeah, just something that they can be remembered by there. So
I was amazed, and I think I saw the exhibit within a week or two of when it opened and you had the debut. And my father flew Hueys, in Vietnam. He flew Bs and Cs and Ds, and I remember when I saw this, you had the radio.
Yep. Yeah.
You
Yeah.
had the little AM radio, and I don't know if I don't know if I remember correctly, but we were talking about you have period music going through it, but you've got a CD player or something inside of it now, or
So what we
something to
did,
that effect.
yeah, what we did was our crew chief gave us his original transistor radio that he had in the aircraft during Vietnam.
Wow.
And it didn't work. I mean, it was in nice shape, but the interior was kind of gone out of it. So we took it apart, and our IT guys put like an MP3 player with a better speaker on the inside of it, but the outside looks identical to it. And then we asked the unit, what were your favorite songs? And they gave us a list, and altogether there was probably like an hour's worth of songs that they gave us. These are the songs that were special to us that we listened to. We then worked with getting the rights to those songs, working with the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame for some programming. They gave us programming for Armed Forces radio back in 1960s. And now we blended it all together. So when you go over there, it sounds like you're just listening to a live radio broadcast from Vietnam. And you've got like Pat Sajak talking about, what's going on in the news and things like that. And then, right after that, it's, they want it painted black and, CCR and stuff like that. I mean, it's really cool, but it's a way of making an artifact work for you, which is kind of neat.
I was so blown away with, and of course, being your buddy, I can step over the wire, and I can go behind the rope when nobody's looking, but just to stand there and to see these guys took this helicopter and created a time capsule. Because, like you mentioned, the Zippo and the pack of cigarettes and there's cans of Schmidt's beer or Schlitz beer rather. And then there's magazines and then the radio. I mean, it's almost like time travel, and the stains on the floor and the scratches on the floor. And that those scratches were made by GIs that were, dragging ammo cans across the floor of that helicopter while they're getting shot at. I mean, that is just profound.
With a thing that got me early on, and I said, this is a story we have to make sure we convey, was the oldest member of our crew that flew on that aircraft was 21 years old. That was the old guy of the crew. The youngest was 18. So I don't know what you guys were doing when you were 18 or 20 years old, but it sure wasn't flying a gunship over Vietnam, No. So we wanted to make sure we told that story of man, these guys were doing some pretty wild stuff. They were young. I mean, they were kids. And at the end of the day, the gunships were there to make sure that the bad guys weren't getting our good guys. That they were we're good guys. We're going to make it home, And we're very proud to have this aircraft. I mean, it is. So when you'd asked once about, does it ever kind of wear off on you? It doesn't. I mean, because when I look at like the Huey, I think of my brothers in the 121st, and when I look at Marge or P-38, I think of the Bong family and the connections we've had where we've hosted them, and the work that we have to do to make sure that young kids today grow up and know who Richard Bong was, which is harder than you would think,
right.
Or that they know what a Huey was, and hey, this is what your grandpa, took into Vietnam. So that's what I'm really proud about, getting to do every day. I mean, Mondays are a lot easier to take when you're going to go put rockets in a rocket tube on a Huey or something like that. So it's, but yeah, I love it. I love going to work.
Well, I guess that answered that initial question, is that, do you take this for granted? I think there's times when we do. Because
I think there's certainly days that are Mondays, and you're like, oh boy, I'll be honest with you, those days are usually like when I'm doing stuff on spreadsheets or something like that, but.
And I think that's something, I think that's something that people lose sight of, is that, it's like, even as modelers, when people, you work in the model industry, it's all fun and games. You sit around building model kits all day. You sit around playing with P-51s and P-38s and Bouchons all day. No, there's literally hundreds and hundreds of hours of boring, tedious paperwork and bookkeeping and running it as a business. You know, you have to be profitable in order to keep the lights on.
Okay, you mentioned the Bouchon.
Yeah. Yeah. Well,
okay, so our Bouchon, we dove into finding out what, you know, we got it in one paint job. We knew it wasn't quite right. It's painted in another paint job, and we know that's, you know, not right. It looks nice, you know.
We should tell people what the Bouchon actually is.
Oh, so you can see it right there in the corner there, but it's basically a Spanish-built ME-109 with a different engine that was built after the war, after World War II. And they really got used in the movie industry to stand in for ME-109s because they look the part, but they've got a different engine up front, so the cowling looks a lot different. But it's, you know, it's certainly in the ME-109 family. Let's say that, you know, I mean, the firewall rear, it's a 109, and you're seeing some older pictures. There's the Sabre before we had it done, and there's some of the nose art. There's the Sabre before we started. So this
right,
this,
yeah,
this
I pulled up your website. I didn't realize you had this virtual walkthrough.
Yeah.
Been doing this the whole time.
no, it's all good. It's all good. Just know everything looks a little bit different right now, but this is a little bit outdated, but still it looks great. There's, you know, those nose art panels, those panels I was telling you about. But anyway, so we started researching the Bouchon, and we're waiting for this big German. The airplane was used in the movie The Battle of Britain, and we said, you know, we ought to nail down the paint scheme at War in the Battle of Britain, and then, you know, look it down the road. Let's paint it in the right markings next time we have it down for anything. So we started there, and I'm thinking, Jeff, I was telling you, you're going to have to use different paint that you thought you'd have to use for this. Because I'm in my head, I'm thinking what German colors, you know, or what close to German colors they do. Our airplane was painted as a Hurricane for the movie. So it was paint, and we have photos of it. It was painted as a Hawker Hurricane, and they would use it as backdrop because they only had like a couple Hurricanes. So they would use this thing as a backdrop to look like other Hurricanes taxiing past the camera. If you ever want to see it, if you watch the movie where they have the Polish squadron come in, if you look at that picture head on, you'll see there's a couple Hurricanes up close to the camera. All the Hurricanes in the backdrop are Bouchons. And once you see it now, you'll never unsee it.
You'll never be able to unsee that.
So yeah, so that airplane should be painted if you're going to do the movie paint job.
Oh, I don't know. I think
look like a Hurricane.
I think you got to kind of keep it the way it is.
I know. I would love to do the movie paint, at least for like Halloween or something. Do something funny, but it looks cool now, though. I mean, it's.
Do you realize how many modelers' heads would explode?
I know. It would be funny to mess with just like, because I know people would come in like, what is that? You know?
Yeah.
But it is true, and that maybe. For you guys to show next week, I'll send you a picture of what it looked like during filming. And
all right,
that would be great. That would be great.
What I was just showing everybody, and I'm sure most everybody picked up on this, but EAA.org is the website, and you can see that. And you know, besides just your museum, and besides, you know, all this fun stuff that we've been talking about, you also host Air Venture each year. And that's you know, I've not been. I would love to go. Hopefully I can at some point, but I understand it's quite an impressive air show with just about anything that still flies is there. And so that would be awesome to see. So EAA.org, guys, check this out. You can get all the information about Air Venture. You can get the information about the museum, how to go, when to go, what to see, and all that fun stuff. So, and besides all of this, Chris, we can't get out of here without mentioning this. You are also the author of this little book here. Tell us a little bit about this.
Absolutely. So this was a great honor to get to do. You know, if you're out with an airplane, and I got to work on air tours with our B-17, you know, you don't get to go near those airplanes, and especially at that time period, we're going back about 10 years, we had more of our World War II veterans with us, and they would come out in droves, you know, at least for that time. You know, they would still come out in a good bit. And they'd, you know, a lot of times they'd have their photo albums and things like that. Or sometimes it was family members who their loved one was passed, but they wanted to know more about, you know, what grandpa did in World War II. And they knew nothing about their grandpa. And that was almost my favorite too. But at any rate, when we had the actual veterans there, they would, you know, a lot of times what was happening is they would leave, and then we would sit there and we'd go, oh man, somebody should have wrote that down or told, you know, said something about where that guy was. So I actually started for about 7 years. I kept a log of who flew on the airplane, what bomb group they were in. If they had photos they were willing to share with us, we'd actually scan their, we wouldn't keep them, but we would scan their World War II photo albums, because those are, from a modeling side standpoint alone, they were invaluable.
That's gold.
Yeah. These are, you know, because we've all seen, you know, I always laugh because sometimes it's like, man, we've all seen the same 30 pictures of B-17s or whatever. Here are pictures nobody's ever seen before because they were this person's private view of the war. So I just started taking this down. I had no ambition to write a book. You know, I never thought I could write a book. I can guarantee my high school English teachers agreed with that. I put together a talk, though, and I would do a lecture about why it's important that we continue to fly these aircraft and tell the stories these veterans would tell us. And I gave it one night at something at EAA, and Rose Pelton, Jack Pelton's wife, who Jack is our CEO, said, you know, Jack, that should be a book. And the next day, Jack called us into the office, Hal and Jim and I, and said, you guys are writing a book. So we put this book together. 100% of the proceeds go to the B-17. We all felt that it would be wrong for us to profit off this. They're not our stories. We weren't writing fiction. What these guys did. So all the proceeds go to the airplane. The foreword was written by Frank Borman, Apollo 8 astronaut, and Harry Friedman, who helped save the Memphis Belle down in Memphis. And it's their stories. It's their original mass-produced photos. My favorite story is my friend Don England was cleaning out a building in Seattle, and he found a picture of B-17Cs coming right off the assembly line, and he offered them back to Boeing, and Boeing was like, "Nah, we have enough of those. You can just get rid of them, or you can have them." And instead, he scanned them and gave them to us. So his pictures are in this book of these B-17Cs. And then we put QR codes in each crew position, and we flew the airplane with cameras mounted in each position. So when you go get the book, you can actually scan the QR code, and you can go for a ride in the ball turret or in the tail or and wherever in the airplane.
Oh, that's cool.
So it was a lot of fun to put together. It was a huge honor, and hopefully it helps get that story out of. We call them the greatest generation. I know that gets said a lot, but boy, they earned that title. I mean,
and where can we get this book?
So you can get onto EAA, the store there, or you can go right on to Amazon, and it's our store that's on Amazon. Just type in The Final Mission and look for that B-17 on the cover. And again, the proceeds all go to the aircraft. So,
and I said I wasn't going to ask you about this, but there's been some issues with B-17s and wing spars, and not just EAA's, but everybody's. And the EAA's plan is to get their aircraft flying again.
Yeah, that is the long-term plan. I mean, the biggest thing is we're overcoming, parts. We're just making sure that we have a viable option going forward so that we're fair to our members, our donors, certainly our crew in the airplane, and the legacy that we, want to continue to tell with the airplane. So we're just being smart and steady with the course. But I have no doubts that the airplane will be in safe hands for years and years to come here.
Excellent news. Well, buddy, I mean, we could go for another 2 hours on this. I know. And there's so many things. I mean, we didn't talk about the Mosquito, and we didn't talk about the Culver, and we didn't talk about the Duck or the Lancer. I mean, there's so many aircraft in your collection, and we didn't even begin to talk about the amazing stuff that you have in the other vintage hangars, on the other side of the airport. Some amazing aircraft outside of the Eagle hangar as well.
Well, you know what that means. We'll just have to have him back again one day.
But again, I think that's probably.
You know what else we didn't talk about? Models.
Well, what are you working on right now, Chris?
So somebody once said, and I think it was one of the questions you asked, you're with airplanes all day long, and
Yep.
you come home, and how do you relax? And it's like, well, by building little airplanes. And but to be honest, again, so like right now I'm building 1/48 scale, trying to recreate the sort of lineage. I'm again born and raised in Pittsburgh, so I'm doing the Pittsburgh Air Guard lineage, the airplanes that were based at my home airport. So right now I'm getting ready to tackle the old antique 172nd AMT KC-135R, and I've got metals to spruce up the to keep up the wings, because they'll droop and stuff like that. So I'm messing with that. I'm a glutton for punishment on this one. I just got done doing, so back in the day when I was a little kid and I got my Squadron stuff, first thing I ever bought was a B-17 model. And, thankful that Brandon has gotten Squadron to where it is. I was at the Nationals that Jeff, you helped put on down there, and I bought the Edward 1/48 scale B-17 off Brandon. So old habits die hard. B-17 nerd till the end.
It all came full circle.
It did. And I, really, models are one of the reasons why I got to do what I do today. And I'm so thankful for that. I love the model culture, the group, the guys that are out there and girls that are out there doing it. Keep doing what you're doing. And I urge you, try to get involved with a local air museum or airplane on a pole. That needs your help too, and use your modeling skills. I know some guys that could probably whip you up a big bucket of paint and go out there. But the modeling passion helps tell the story of these veterans. Those different markings you're putting on stuff and paint jobs, you're putting them on there for a reason. And so keep going at what you guys are doing. My hat's off. I hope I can be as good as some of the guys that are on here. But
it's all fun, man. There's people with so many different skill sets, and to me, they're all good. If you finish your model and you like it, I call it a win.
Yeah,
so
absolutely.
I'll tell you this. I'm pretty excited. So Fifi, the B-29, is flying to Chattanooga in a month and a half. So yeah, I'm going to see it. I've never seen it in person, cool. So I'm very excited to go see that. I don't know what else they're bringing with them. I hope they bring something else. I'm sure they will. But
the B-29 is like a battleship inside. I mean, it's so different than a B-17.
Yeah, I mean, I've seen them, but I've never seen one fly.
Yeah,
where I grew up down in Americus, Georgia, over in Cordele, they had one at the Veterans Park over there.
Oh,
so and when I was a kid, they didn't even have a fence up. I mean, you could just go climb all over the tanks and walk right up to the B-29 and look up in it. So it's very cool, and I always remember it being huge. But I've always wanted to see one fly. So I'm looking forward to seeing Fifi come into town.
Well, and that's awesome. Fifi's a great, great group. So's Doc. I mean, all these guys that work hard to save them. Static Flying, whichever. Everybody's working hard to save them.
Right.
But and a message out there, if there's model builders out there that are looking for details or something like that, if it's something we have in a museum, let us know, and we're happy to. If you're able to come up, we'll let you cross ropes and go with you. Just ask and we'll go with you.
There you
go.
We'll
let you, poke your head in a wheel well, or if you just need a picture or something, we're happy to help. That's why we save them here.
When I wrote my modeling British aircraft of World War II, one of the aircraft that I did was the Mosquito. And where else in the world can you get up close and personal, and again, there with the stories, I'm laying on the ground on the floor with a camera shooting up into the bomb bay, and Chris is standing over me pointing out the signatures of the RAF pilots who flew the aircraft.
Yeah, they signed the airplane after restoration. Yeah,
it's absolutely amazing to be able to piece all of this together and put the nostalgia together. Now, I noticed in the what a beautiful airplane.
Yeah, it's gorgeous. Yeah. The airplane's on loan from Kermit Weeks, and he's gracious enough to allow us to do limited access or cockpit climbs from time to time, and he's a great saver of warbirds, that's for sure.
Yep.
Wow. That's awesome, Chris.
So here's something that John Lydell has put up there. So, and this is how model builders can get involved. There's an exhibit currently at the EAA Museum that is going to be refreshed, and it's currently a small scale, like
Yeah.
1/200 scale or something, B-17 base. And we decided that we're going to do a 48 scale P-47 base. So I know John Lydell and Michael Fuller, who responded right below him, are actively involved, along with a bunch of other modelers who have built aircraft for this project, and hopefully we're going to get that installed this calendar year.
Yeah.
July the 32nd.
Well, maybe not in July, but yeah.
The 32nd is okay, because there's nothing.
There's nothing,
nothing on the calendar for the 32nd. But this was a project that we started last year at the IPMS Nationals as a P-47 group build. So there are modelers from all over the country that are building specific. And correct me if I'm wrong. It's 356th Fighter Group or 365th.
Yeah.
Someone will tell me
number. Yeah, but yeah.
And they're building each one of the historic aircraft that were sitting on the runway on D-Day, doing ground attack, ground support missions. So they're building hangars, and they're building ground vehicles, and lots of figures and things like that. It's going to be a really phenomenal model exhibit that's going to end up being in the museum for years to come.
I look forward to seeing that.
Yeah, and we have to mention that'll be really cool. We'll have it adjacent to the USS Enterprise. We have a 172nd scale USS Enterprise, which is currently in the Eagle hangar, and it's got a flight deck full of Hellcats and Avengers and stuff like that. And
I am blown away by that model.
Yeah,
every time I go up there, I see something new on that model.
Yeah, yep, absolutely.
We got to get Brandon up there. I mean,
yeah, absolutely.
I'll make it up there at some point. I got to come.
Well, you got a place to stay. So,
well, I hope.
Yeah.
Oh man. Well, guys, this has been awesome. Chris, we'll definitely have to have you back again one of these days and do this again. Hear about some more stories, because I'm sure you are full of other very interesting stories that everybody will love to hear. So I appreciate you sharing all this. This has just been great. I really appreciate it.
Well, thank you for having me. It's an honor to be here.
Absolutely. We'll say goodbye for now, but we'll have you back hopefully sometime soon.
Yeah. You name the time and place, I'll be there.
I'll see you at the next Model Club meeting.
Sounds good.
There you go. Thank you, Chris.
See ya.
Well, Jeff, I guess it's back to 3D printing and boxing up model kits and all this fun stuff that we get to do every day. So I'm going to I got to get this video done on this Fletcher. Everybody's going to be looking forward to seeing that. And I know some of the really exciting things you were referring to earlier, so we won't let any cats out of any bags tonight. But hopefully in the coming weeks we'll have some fun little bits to show.
Well, as they jokingly say, I don't think it takes a rocket surgeon to figure out that Jeff's making 3D parts, and there's a new Fletcher kit sitting there. So,
well, people can put two and two together, and if they can't in a couple of weeks, we'll just tell them. So
exactly, that's how
there
it
you
works.
go. Well, I appreciate everything again tonight, Jeff. I'll let you go.
My pleasure.
And I'm sure I'll talk to you tomorrow.
Yep. Thanks, everyone, and have a great evening.
Absolutely. See you, Jeff.
All righty. Cheers.
Well, guys, that's going to wrap it up for tonight. I really appreciate you being here. Always look forward to this every week. And guess what? Next week is show and tell. So please send me your show and tell submissions. Send those over to info@squadron.com. And please, in the subject line, put show and tell. And don't take it hard that I don't respond. Usually when those show and tell submissions come in, I just throw them over in a folder. So if I don't respond to it, I get them. But that's, usually I just take those, throw them in the folder, and then a day or two before the show and tell, I put them into a PowerPoint. So Anyway, send those over to info@squadron.com. Looking forward to next week. And until then, you guys work on some models, have some fun, and take it easy. We'll see you next week.